Hi, MennoNerds. It's Paul here, and it looks like we're still talking about preaching. So let's run with it. Deborah, in your last video, there's something you said that got under my skin a bit, but I totally get where you're coming from. Basically, what you said is that, unless the sermon is engaging and unless it's relevant to where people are at, people are going to disconnect within 5 minutes, and that you caution the use of, using our seminary training and going to the Greek and things like that. This is something I'm personally learning. I have a tendency to want to make it a bit too heavy, and I can lose people, especially when I bring out certain things from a commentary. So I'm learning more and more to digest the material a bit more. By digest, I mean this. I heard a story, this from Brian Zahn, where he kind of described his job as a preacher much like a cow. Now follow me here. He believes that his job as a preacher, a pastor, communicating God's word, is that he goes out into the vast fields of theological depth, and he eats, and he eats, and he eats, and he digests and takes that rough grass of the depths of theology, and he makes it usable, and he turns it into something like milk. I love that cow analogy. Now, getting back to that under the skin thing I talked about, here's why it just bugged me a bit what you said, Deborah. And it bugged me a bit because I think there are those that might hear that and think, oh, great, I really don't need to do that hard work. I don't need to eat in the fields. I can just spew out whatever I want. And of course, Deborah, I'm not suggesting you're saying that at all. I guess what I'm wrestling with here is sermons where the entertainment value and the engagement value are sometimes the highest goal. And I wrestle with it because I know there's been sermons that have had amazing effect in my life, that have been transformational, that for most of the sermon, they were not entertaining at all. I think of one sermon by Pastor Greg Boyd. So Greg's kind of a more academic guy. He does have his doctorate. And he spent most of the sermon really exegeting and working with one Greek word. I believe it was pleroma. And he kept working with it and working with it. And it was in the context of the book of Colossians. And he kept working it. And, there was a good chunk of the sermon. I was just like, where is this going? I mean, you make no sense. Are you on an ADD trip again? Or, where are you going, Greg? Where are you going? And all of a sudden, as I'm listening, the ball just drops. Boom! And it just hits me, and I understand the passage in a way I'd never understood it before. And it was almost like the light just started shining, or a light bulb just lit up behind me. Now, I think Greg Boyd can do that because he's created a culture in his church where slowly over time, he's asked people to grow up and mature a bit. He often uses this statement, it's time to put on our thinking caps here. And he'll always reinforce that, hey, listen, it's a good idea to engage, to put our minds to things. And I think because he does that, he has way more impact and fruit as in his sermons. So to sum this up, I'm not saying that having an entertaining sermon is a bad idea. In fact, I think it's probably something we should think about. We want to capture people's attention. There's nothing wrong with that. I just worry about making that the highest goal. Because if there's anything that the entertainment industry has taught us, is that when entertainment is the highest goal, our content can be pretty shallow.